Suffocating Cool with Greg from the Dillinger Escape Plan. How you doing, brother?
What's up, dude? How are you? Thanks for having me.
So, I understand you guys just got a new label coming out with a whole new album.
Yep. We have a new record out called One of Us is a Killer. We started our own kind of imprint called Party Smasher.
Okay.
And we were on a label called Relapse for 10 years. And we were in a traditional record contract. We had, they had worldwide rights to our stuff. We had a 3-album deal. And it took us forever to kind of complete that deal. And when we finished it, we obviously just wanted the absolute opposite of it. We wanted like total control. We wanted to be able to pick every territory. If we want a different distributor in Europe than the U.S., if we want a different distributor in Australia than Europe, we wanted to have like total, kind of like a more DIY, like in-house, control over everything. So in the U.S., we signed with a label called Sumerian, who is doing a kick-ass job. And then in Europe, it's like some other people. In Australia, some other people. It's refreshing, man. After being like kind of like under someone else's umbrella for 10 years, it's nice.
So you think this album here was easier to put together then because of everything?
It was a little easier for us because we didn't have we have a lot of lineup changes throughout the years.
Oh yeah.
And, this time was only the second time in our history that we recorded a record back to back with the same recording lineup. We didn't have to like teach some new member like old songs. That's more than anything made it easier, just because it takes so much out of you to like be like, all right, shit, here's 30 songs we have to teach you. Like, while we're writing new ones, and like it's just, like you end up spending half your energy just like retreading shit you've already done. And this time we didn't have to worry about that. So it allowed us just to kind of look forward and not have to be like, fuck, how did you play that song that we wrote 8 years ago?
Yeah, definitely. Well, see, I noticed like a lot of bands, when they get somebody new, they actually they look for the best cover band around to get them in because they already know the shit.
Right. Yeah. It's tough, man. Like after like you've been around, like we've been around for a minute, So after you've been around as long as we have, it's not just about like finding a dude that can play it. It's about finding someone that you can tolerate, on tour. Someone that can tolerate tour, because like tour breaks people, man. Like it's like everyone likes the idea of tour, but they like the idea of it as if it's a vacation. They like the idea of like what they imagine it to be for a day. But when you're like 140 shows in, and you're in like Frankfurt, Germany, and it's like 2 degrees, and you haven't seen your girlfriend in like 7 weeks, and like you just got in a fight with someone that you have to now live with for like the next 3 weeks still, like people start to break, man. So like it just, after a while, the criteria starts to like become so fucking narrow of once we all have a relationship with one another already. So like someone new coming in is like coming in a situation where some of us have known each other for 13 years.
Yeah.
And like we already have such a thing going on that it's so intimidating for some new person to be like, fuck, Like,
yeah, what are you guys up,
Yeah. It's not like you just play the gig and then go home like you would in like, a local band. Like you play the gig and then you fucking have to live with people that have known each other for 13 years.
Yeah.
So it's a little intense,
Well, especially now, with the new album, there's going to be a lot of touring involved.
Yeah, man. We have 140 shows booked between now and the end of 2013, which it's like if I look at them on paper, it's just like,
oh, it's gonna be fucking mind-blowing.
I try not to even look at it, man. Like when I just try to look day by day, like every day you wake up and you're like, cool, we're here today? Okay, cool. Because if you look at them all, it's like looking at the top of Mount Everest from the bottom. You're just like, oh my God, like how am I gonna not lose my voice? How am I gonna fucking not like, or how are we not gonna have some kind of injury that derails us or something? You know what I mean? You can't let yourself get out of your head like that. You just gotta take it one day at a time.
Right. Now, throughout the summer, you got any festivals planned or anything like that?
Yeah, we're gonna go over to Europe and we're gonna play some fests. I'm not sure which ones off the top of my head anymore. Someone just sends them to me and then we're like, yes, let's do that one. And then I just, like I said, I don't really look at them again for a while because it fucking freaks me out,
Oh yeah.
But and then we're gonna come back to the U.S. and do this thing called Summer Slaughter, which is gonna be us and a bunch of other metal bands, Animals as leaders, Periphery, Norma Jean. There's like a bunch of other bands playing it, and we're gonna headline that. And then we're just gonna keep on getting it, man.
Very cool.
Oh, we're gonna do that at Orion Fest too, which is really fucking cool.
Metallica show?
Yeah, I'm kind of geeking about that.
Yeah, that's definitely, I went last year. It's a good time.
Yeah, man, someone was telling me they had like something where you can see all of like Kirk's horror movie stuff, and another thing where you can see all of James's cars and all this shit. It's like kind of more like a Metallica theme park for a day or something like that.
So yeah,
I was like the biggest Metallica geek alive, when I was a kid, so that'll be pretty cool.
Yeah, it's always a good time, especially when you go for somebody that you used to like when you were younger, now have a chance to be on the same stage.
Oh, it's nuts, man. The only time I've ever really lost my cool was like the first time I met like Lars and James, which was actually like only like a couple years ago. Like I just like I was like reduced to 9 years old instantly.
Right.
You know, like as much as I tried to keep it together, I actually had to admit to James, I was like, hey dude, I'm sorry, I'm really trying hard to like act like, you know, like cool right now, but like I'm just gonna fucking take a second to be like, hey, I'm losing it a little bit. And he was totally cool about it. He like didn't like get weird. He was like, I get it, man. You know, like he's like, when I hang out, you know, he was like, when I see Tony Iommi, when I see like, you know, the Aerosmith guys, I still feel like a kid every time I see him.
Right.
You know? So he was like, I totally get it. It was like the coolest moment. You know.
Now, speaking about festivals, years ago you did the Reading.
Oh fuck yeah.
And it was, well, you know, definitely impacted a lot of things there. It's actually one of the top 100 performers of all time that was there.
Yeah. It's nuts, man. I didn't really think about it. You know, like I was 21, 22 years old, and no one knew who we were. You know what I mean? Like there were like a bunch of shitty bands playing, and like we were playing at noon, and like people were kind of just waking up and like being like, what is this racket on stage?
Right.
And I was like, you know, just like, what can I do that'll like make some type of a statement? And like, you know, everything at those fests is fucking like some type of fake thing. Like there's like a pyrotechnic, or someone has fake blood on themselves.
Right.
There's some kind of spectacle, but like it's not like it's all like a circus, you know, like at those big shows. So I'm like, what can I do that people will just be like, oh my god, this is like something really real is happening in front of you right now. Like the only really two things you can do are fucking kill yourself, or like cut a body part off, or
right.
You know, just do something that visceral that people won't be able to like look away from. So I was like, fuck, I'm just gonna wipe shit all over myself and throw it into the crowd. But and it was crazy, man, because I didn't understand at the time like how, like, I guess like people just aren't, you know, like you read about G.G. Allen and shit like that doing like crazy stuff, but that's like in like a basement somewhere, like a little club or something.
Right.
Like I didn't realize how big of a deal it was gonna be, and we almost got banned from the UK. They like fucking like called like, you know, there was like, we had to like call, text, like talk to like emailing ambassadors and shit, and like basically kind of try to like explain to them that we're not horrible, depraved people, and that we should be allowed back in the country at some point. It was just like this big ordeal right away. It's crazy that people even still talk about it. It was like I said 11 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, but it is one of those things where it definitely impacts. You know,
it's weird because it made like, it was like a national news thing over there, where it was like in newspapers that don't even talk about music,
right?
Stuff like that. So like, and living in the U.S., like you don't really get a grasp that like when something like that happens, kind of like everybody knows about it. So like now when we go back there, like if I'm doing any type of interview, people, it's like even like 10, 11 years later, people are just like, if they don't know anything about us, they're like, oh fuck, that band, you're the guy that shit on stage.
Yeah,
I'm like, that's crazy.
Shit in the crowd.
Yeah, I'm like, that's so fucking crazy. Like that was just like one, for us it was just like one show out of a gazillion, you know, but like, I guess like, you know, what, you know, people's moms and dads heard about that and shit, which is kind of strange, you know.
Now, is there ever a time where you want to just flip out again when you do these festivals like that or anything? Nothing to that level?
Nothing, you know what, man, I try not to think about anything. Like, the second I think about something, I try not to do it, because I feel like I've already corrupted it by like, you know, whether it's like jumping in the crowd or fucking doing something crazy or like, you know, something that extreme. Like anything that I do on stage, I really want to stay away from shtick, because the second you go in that direction, you just go so far into it that you can't remember anymore, that like, you don't even remember how to be spontaneous anymore. Like bands start jumping up and down at the same time. They're like, here's the part that I climb on this thing, and then you know, there's a video of you on the internet where you do this at this time, and then kids expect you to do that at this time, and then it just becomes like a fucking theater act.
Yeah, like a big fucking show.
Yeah, and like we started playing these shows in like basements and VFW halls, and like we were like a hardcore band that played to like hardly anybody when we first started. So like I really want to try to preserve that, you know, kind of punk rock energy of not knowing what's going to happen, and that means me too. Like, and if I start to know what's going to happen, then I'm lying to everybody. And,
right.
You know.
Prancer is the single you guys just put out.
Yep.
And the album comes out next month.
Yep, May 14th, I believe.
There's actually 6 minutes that you guys put on your website.
Of just like kind of like a sample of every song.
Right.
Yeah, we have so many different things on the record. It was weird to even put out Prancer, because there's so many different kind of styles on the record that one song is not going to be indicative of the whole album, and it's sometimes frustrating. I try not to read like comments or any kind of feedback, because you hear like polar opposites. Some people will be like, yeah, I'm so psyched that the whole album's going to be like this.
Well, you know what?
And I'm like, why would you think that? It's just one song. And then other people will be like, man, I really was hoping that they would do something more like this. And I'm like, fuck, dude, there's 11 of them. You know what I mean? Like, this is one. You know,
Yeah.
like don't judge the whole record based on one song, whether you love it or don't like it. You know, like you gotta realize that it's part of a bigger thing. You know.
Well, especially now with social media, it's so hard to read that shit, man. You got some little fucking asshole that's just like, fuck you, and fuck this band, and you know what I mean?
I deleted all that. I used to have Twitter, I had Instagram, I had Facebook, and one day I just woke up and I was like, I don't want any of this shit anymore. Like, it was like getting out of control, like the amount of like attention that comes to things that you don't really want to be a big deal. Like, you might just say something really quickly.
Right.
You know, you hear something on the radio and like, fuck, this song is terrible, or I don't like this movie, or something like that. And the next thing you know, like a bunch of weird music sites pick up on it and turn it into some type of bizarre story where it's like, Greg from Dillinger says that this sucks. And I'm like, wait, that wasn't supposed to be a press release. And it's just like, I thought I was just talking to our fans.
Yeah.
You know, and like, that's what happened is I was naive enough to think that I was just talking to our little fan base. And, you know, people are fucking gossipy and fucking dramatic, and, you know, they'll take anything you give them and fucking try to, you know, twist it into something it's not, you know. So one day I was like, fuck this. I just want people to go back to giving a fuck about us playing, you know, here's our album, here's what we do on stage, you know. If we do an interview or something, that's cool, but, like, Twitter blurs the line. It all blurs the line too much for me between, like, privacy and, like, you know,
oh, for sure.
And, like, you know, what's the difference between when it's so strange to be like, marketing has become so important to people because no one buys records, that like people are willing to whore out their personal life for marketing. You know? And everyone tells you it's so important, like all the record labels believe it's so important now, and I'm like, it's not important, man. Like, there's no correlation. I've seen people that have 16 million Twitter followers sell fucking 5,000 records. You know, like, it's not, it doesn't mean
what you eat for fucking dinner and put on Facebook ain't gonna make me want to listen
for
to
real,
your shit
man.
anymore,
Like, whether you're a likable dude or whether people think you're like a cool guy or whether people are like, oh, I like sushi too. You know, like, who gives a shit, man? You know,
they're not gonna be like, well, fuck it, I'm gonna go.
I'm gonna go give you $15. I like Starbucks too. Yeah. You know, come on.
So, everything's gonna be up on the site then, all the tour dates, everything like that. It's all accessible through there.
Yeah, man. DillingerEscapePlan.org, I think. I don't even know the name of the website. I think
you guys, you're .org.
And because whoever owns the .com is an asshole, won't give it to us. But yeah, or our Facebook. You know, like, you can find out. You know, if you want to find out, it's out there. You know.
Right. Yeah. Definitely.
But,
cool, man.
Well, yeah, dude. Thank you for
appreciate it
the help and for the joints, which we will be partaking in later on. Buffalo's finest.
OMG, baby.
Thanks very much. And thanks everyone for giving a shit about our band or checking us out if you haven't yet. Right on, man. Dude, thank you. Sorry for fucking